I'm Jan Gilm. I'm manager of exhibit planning at the Art Museums of Colonial Williamsburg, and we're standing in the Public Hospital of 1773, a reconstructed building at Colonial Williamsburg. This building was proposed in 1766. Up until that time, most of the mentally ill were either housed in the public jail if they were a danger, or they were taken care of at home. There were 24 cells, which were areas to house the patients, as they called them. And they had to be brought through a process of being essentially picked up by the magistrate and deemed to be insane. And then they were brought to the hospital. When they were brought here, they were sort of confined to their cells, and they would by trying to cure them, they would use different treatments. Perhaps they would restrain them if they were more manic, or they might use drugs, or they had the process of bleeding. They weren't quite fully understanding what the mental illness was being caused by, and they felt it was a physical condition that they might be able to treat and actually cure. By the 19th century, there's more of an idea of reform, sort of in America as a whole, different reform societies, social reforms. And that trickled into the care of the mentally ill as well. They felt that it was better to engage the patients and get them talking to each other, as well as engaging in activities that would keep their minds busy and help pull them out of themselves, basically. And so there were a lot of activities planned. There was useful activities like gardening and crafts, spinning, anything that would keep their mind and their hands busy. There were also social activities, meeting in the room to play games, or to have lectures or magic lantern shows, things that got the patients out of their rooms. Then with the impact of the Civil War and not having enough staff and not just so much else going on, that kind of reverted back to not quite the same restraints that they had in the beginning, but a less compassionate time period. And so it became called custodial care, where the hospital finally came to the conclusion that they couldn't actually cure everybody. And so they actually realized that this hospital was meant for long-term confinement, not just for a few years while this patient was being cured. Today, the public hospital serves actually two functions. It is the entrance to the art museums of Colonial Williamsburg, but as people enter, they do get a sense of what that original 1773 building was like. There are reconstructed cells and a small exhibit talking about the history of the public hospital. The exhibit at the public hospital does have a nice overview of the period from 1773 to 1885 when it burned. And we were able to borrow several objects from Eastern State Hospital. They actually maintained some of their properties, like restraining devices that were used in the 18th and 19th centuries. And archaeology provided some other objects like ceramics and glassware and other things that were used at the hospital throughout its time period. When visitors today come to the public hospital, there are several things that are rather interesting in that in 1773, we are just beginning the Revolutionary War, but yet that is the time period at which this hospital is deemed important enough to build. So these people, they understand that there were these mentally ill people who needed to be cared for. And it was this process throughout the time period then of how do we care for these people, because the mental illness was just not fully understood. But people understood that they needed to find a way to help the people. So it's an interesting development that is still ongoing today, is how to care for people in an appropriate way.